So one of the first big assignments that we need to get through are going to be actually three of them. HTML layout 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to walk you through them. Basically, this is a review of HTML. Hopefully you remember HTML from Web Design 1, maybe Web Design 2, another class that you've taken with El Centro College. Every time that we get to something like this, you will be able to review some of the material by clicking on the links that I provided. I'm going to walk you through the process of recreating this file. What file am I talking about? This layout. We'll see that we have a header on top. We do have a body that has content inside. The background color of this page, for example, is a darker gray, and then we actually are drawing a lighter gray box inside, and then there's this little footer at the bottom. Hopefully those names that I just mentioned, I will add them at the top. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Eventually the link will be something like this. It's from W3 Schools, and what I just mentioned were semantic elements. Semantic elements, there's not that many of them. There is a picture that is famous on the internet. This one right here defines what the semantic elements are. The header that I just mentioned, the footer that I just mentioned. See, those are the two blocks, top and bottom, top, bottom. And then we do have a body in here that's not mentioned, but it's in every single web page out there. Now, that's something also from Web 1 that maybe you remember. We'll be using header, body, and footer to recreate this image. So let's begin by, I'm going to first visit my GitHub. Hopefully I'm in the right account. If not, I'll change. I am in my 2470 GitHub. I had some major issues with this for the last few days. I finally got it fixed. If you have any issues with your GitHub page or accessibility, please let me know, or let your instructor know, and we'll work with you to get it fixed. In the meantime, I don't have any files in here right now. I just have some random stuff that I add at the beginning. I do have an index page that doesn't say much. I'm going to, however, add a file that will be what you're going to be doing, the layout 1. So let me go to add file and tell it to create a new file. Like I said, I don't have any files in here. My work should be in folders according to unit. The easiest way to keep track is if I create a new folder, and I do that in GitHub by naming it first. Whenever I'm creating a file, I'm going to say week 03. That's the name of the folder. Notice it's all lowercase. There's no spaces. Week 03. It's the only numbers and letters that should be in the name of the file. I will click the slash again. That will create the folder, and now it's asking for the name of the file. This file will be layout 01. It's an HTML file, so I'll add .html. I can't stress enough, no lowercase, no spaces. Don't call this layout 1 without the 0. Don't call it layout 1 with a space instead of a 0. No spaces in your file names, no spaces in the directory names, no uppercase matching back and forth. Are they valid files if you use a space? Probably not. You could get into issues with the server if you choose to use capital letters because you've seen them used elsewhere. Points will be deducted. So keep it, please, all lowercase, best practice, all lowercase, no spaces. Anyway, after that reading of the Riot Act, let me continue. So we have, I'm going to pull this out of the way here so I don't see it all the time. We have a header, we have another part that is the body, and then we have the footer. So I just know that because that's what we do in web design. I'm going to also need another tool, and if you have not created a Codepen account yet, please do. I'm going to go to Codepen. I'm already signed in, and I'm going to create a new pen by clicking here, create pen. I'm going to close the JavaScript so that I only have HTML and CSS. I can make these boxes here give me a little bit more space. I'll be using mostly the CSS in a little bit, but I have to build the HTML first. If you don't see the windows like I do, maybe you have the view for the boxes on top, you can just click on Change View, select the one at the very left, and now we have HTML, CSS, and like I said, JavaScript. We're not going to use JavaScript for this page. So HTML, in your assignment, I'm going to go up, and before the assignment itself, there's a sample HTML page. You can copy all of this file right here from doc type to HTML. Make sure that there's no gaps, that you have the brackets on top and below. Right click and copy, go back to Codepen, and in HTML I'm going to press Ctrl-V to paste. V as in Victor. I'm going to give myself more space so that I can see what's going on. So there's doc type, it's an HTML file, it's in English, that's what this means on line 2. The title, sample HTML5 page, I'm going to change this to layout 1. Notice how it's the title, so you can add a space, you can skip the 0, you can call it pretty much anything. I'm going to skip the meta tags, that's line 6 and 7 here. I'm just going to highlight that and delete it. Style sheet, let's change this from my styles. Let's call this index.css. An adventurous name. You should not call your CSS index.css, but we will, just for now. Then we're going to check out what's going on with the rest of the file. I told you we're going to need the body, so anything after body and before the body closes. So at least from my line 10 to my line 23, I'm going to delete that. I'm just pressing space a few times, put my cursor somewhere in the middle, and now my page is blank. And that's what I want. I told you that it's important to know about the semantic elements, that we're going to be using headers, we're going to be using a footer, and definitely we're going to take advantage that there's going to be a body that we can modify. I'll scroll down just to see the image again. I'll zoom out a little bit. Maybe we can see this a little bit better on the screen. I think I should zoom in. Yes. So we can see what's going on. Well, actually, as I'm trying to zoom out and zoom in, what's going on is that because this is supposed to be a mobile device, it's trying to accommodate it, so it's going out of its way to not letting me do any one of these. I'm just going to stick to 100%. Lesson learned. Well, so we're going to be doing the same thing, but in code over here. We're going to be drawing the squares, and we're going to be telling it to zoom in and zoom out all on its own, because that's how mobile devices work. So in our body, I told you that, especially with this last thing, that's going to be your last link, the semantic elements, we're going to be using a header, the body, and the footer, and I probably already said that twice. I'm going to say, okay, the header will exist, and we'll close it. That is bracket, header, bracket, open bracket, header, open bracket, slash header. That opens and closes the header space. I told you we're going to be, well, we're already inside of the body, so that's good. We're also going to be using, I spoke too quick, there is going to be a main element. I don't know that we necessarily talk about it here, but we'll just name it as main. In the Codepen, we're going to open up main and close it. So bracket main, bracket slash main, and then the footer. As we go along, you'll see what's being designed on the right. There's nothing there, because although we have defined the space, we haven't styled it. We haven't told it to do anything with it. That's where CSS will come in. We're pretty much done with our HTML. Let's open up the CSS, and since I know that we're using a header, a main, and a footer, let's call those out. That's how, and also we're using the body. So body, open curly braces, space, Then in the next lines here, I'll add the header, open curly braces, return, and then there's a main, curly braces, and finally the footer. So now the body should be the easiest thing. I know that if I go back and I look at the picture, it's supposed to go all the way to the edge, top to bottom, left to right. What that means is that the margin, that is the area around it, is going to be non-existent. It's going to go all the way to the edge. The margin will be 0. I'll add a semicolon. I'll go on to the next line, and this in particular, this color for the picture that we're trying to follow, this is almost black, but not quite. If you want to pick a dark black color, it's a dark gray more than anything, click on CSS units. Well, not yet. Actually, let's do the color picker. And you can sort of see what the dark colors are. This is more blue than anything. This is darker gray. Anywhere where you start to click, you'll see what the hexadecimal value is. It's going to be giving you this. Like 0F0F0 is a pretty good darker color. That's not completely black, but I won't ask you to pick one just yet. I'm going to tell you what values we'll be using for this one. Just know that that tool exists and is very useful. So we're going to say then that the background color, background hyphen color, colon is, we're going to pick D8, D8, D8. By the way, if you Google or do a search on any color, you'll find out what it is. These are hexadecimal colors. This is gray. It's not so dark, but it's the background of the body. So that actually, although it's pointing to the top, it's the area that is going to be inside that will not get blotted out. Also, I need to add a hashtag at the very beginning because this is, after all, hexadecimal, and now I see the true color. After that, I'm going to say, since it occupies all of the page, that the width should be at 100%, spanning the whole thing, and the height should also span 100%. So basically what we've done is that if we had a mobile device where we could see this, this would be just basically a gray application. In the header, which is where the darker color actually lives, we know we're going to have a darker color there. So let's start with that. Let's say that the background color, and although I could go all black with zeros, we don't necessarily want that. They're asking for a lighter color. There's no height applied, so we can't see it yet. I'll just leave that there until we're done with the rest of the coding. I will add the width. This is also going all the way across. Let me spell width correctly. At 100%. And finally, I do have a link that explains a little bit more of what we're doing. Hopefully you covered this in Web 1 or Web 2. If you click on these CSS units, you'll see that there's absolute links and there's relative links. This is what we want. I told you that the browser is going to try to fit the design in, and basically that's because we're saying whenever you're doing something with the vertical value or the horizontal value, make it relative to percentages of how tall the whole thing is. So here we're going to use 20% of the screen. Right here, this would be 20% of the total of everything, so not very much. The way to do it is by declaring a VH that's relative to 1% of the height. So VH without any numbers. VH 20 would then mean, hey, that's actually, it's 20 VH. It says 20% of the vertical height should be dedicated to this particular style. And our height then will be that 20%, 20 VH semicolon. So right away, it took 20% of the screen from top to bottom, and since it's going all the way across, we got to see this black bar. I told you we don't necessarily want the darkest black. We want 444444, which is somewhere in the middle, so it's a dark gray. So that's the header. We've done the top. The main is going to be the area inside, and main we are seeing that it's probably a lighter color than the whole thing, so that it will be able to show up. We'll be able to see the contrast. Let's add the code for a color that's lighter than the force. I'll do a background color, colon, and for this I'm going to add it EF, semicolon. Don't forget the hashtag at the beginning. It's not showing up because we have not declared how wide it's going to be. The width is also going to be all the way across, I do believe. Or no, actually we only want part of it. We only want 75% from here to here. The rest is actually 25% of the distance across, but it's in the middle. And notice what happens if I go and say that the width is 75%, if I could spell it correctly. Width is 75%, semicolon to end the line, and we're going to be shown something different. We were supposed to be shown something different, except there's no height. So this still doesn't exist. Just like we did before with the vertical, let's give this a height that is going to be 70%. So this is most of the screen. 70 VH semicolon. Now we see the square, but it's to the left, and like I said, we wanted this to be in the middle. Right here, from here to here, so that we have the columns on the side. We have the right width, it's just placed incorrectly. We're going to have to switch something when we declare the margin for the main. So let's give it the margin. We know that we want to go all the way outside, so that'll be 0 for sure, right? And I do the semicolon to end the line, but it's still hooked up to the left, and that's because although it's trying to reach all the way to the end, it still starts everything from the left, and it's trying to go to the right as far as it can. We could add additional CSS that tells it to push it, but we really don't need to do that because this is just a background. So we tell the margin, if it's doing 0 on top, everywhere else it should go to auto, AUTO, automatic, and then that way it'll space itself out from the left, from the right, and from the bottom. That is the other part. So let's do the footer to finish this. The footer is a different color as well. It's also darker. Notice how it's only going from the edge of the column to the edge of this column. And we know that the area in here is 75%. So that helps. I'll say that the footer has a background color. It was decided earlier that the color is also a dark gray, so it's going to be a little bit different though. It's going to be hashtag, and then 22, and finally another 22s. Semicolon. And so that we can see it, let's start to define where it's going to live. The margin, like everything else, is a 0, and we learned that it should be auto as well. Well, let's not do the auto. Let's save that for the end. To be more dramatic about it, you can put it in if you want. I'll put it in a couple of minutes. I'll say that the width, as predicted, will be 75% at a semicolon to say that's the end of the line. And then finally the height, what will actually allow us to see it. As opposed to 20, we'll use 10 VH, so only 10% of the vertical height. And it did that, except it doesn't go all the way across. So actually, it's not in the middle where we wanted it, because we need to specify that it should autocorrect once it knows that it's 0 from the top, and then only 10% to the bottom. And this, if I had a larger screen, which I don't, I'm in Chromebook. Let me see if I do this so I can show you that the browser will automatically try to fix it because of the code we've used. It doesn't matter if it's horizontal or vertical. Everything will be at the same relative height. And we want this because this is a design that's being built for mobile devices. We don't know if you're looking at it on an iPhone or an iPad or on a Samsung or an Android device. Maybe you're seeing it on a computer like I am. It doesn't matter. It should adjust to everything that you shoot it its way. So now that this is all said and done, I should have done this earlier. I should click on the pencil and call this layout01.html. So that's the name of the file. You could have also just called it layout1 as long as you know what you're dealing with. So I said that we did this so that we could see what's happening. I'm going to go back to my GitHub where I had created that new file. And now I'm going to move this closer just so I don't have to jump around so much. And the HTML, I'll click inside HTML, press Ctrl A to select all, right click and copy. In my file, this is layout01.html, I'll click inside and I'll press Ctrl V as in Victor, and that's my HTML. It's looking for a file called index.css. You know, now that I'm looking at it and I told you it's a bad idea, it is a bad idea. Instead of index.css, I'm going to call this layout01.css, spelled correctly, layout01.css, and then commit the file. Now that I've committed the file, it's inside of week 3. I need to give it the CSS code. That's what we typed over here as well. So I'm going to click anywhere inside the CSS part, press Ctrl A, and then that selects all, right click, copy. You could also press Ctrl C. And then we're going to create the file here. I forget, I changed the name at the last minute and I didn't write it down, but it's going to be layout01.css. So we want to create a new file. Let's do this under add file, create new file, call it layout01.css, and here press what I just copied. Control V as in Victor will paste, and then I will commit the file. Once the file is committed, go back to your layout01.html, and you can highlight this name, or you can type out artv2470.github.io/week03/layout01.html. This is my page. Should be your username.github.io. I'm gonna tell it to go there, and it goes there, and it shows me what it's created in HTML. So no matter what the width, no matter what the height, I should be able to see a relatively similar structure, which will also take place in your mobile device. If you have a cell phone nearby and you have a browser you can operate, you can go to this website. Go to your username.github.io/week03/layout01.html, because I trust that you save the names like this, and check it out and see what happens on your phone. Now that I have this selected, I'm going to copy this, the URL, and when I go back to my assignment in week 3, I'll click on HTML layout01. That's the one we just did. Toward the bottom, assignment submission, where we'll write the submission, and then here I can press Ctrl V as in Victor to paste, and then you can click submit, and then that will turn it in to be graded. I can't because I'll get an error as an instructor. If you have any questions, please let me know via email. I'll answer them as soon as possible, and I'll see you on the next video.